This is my new favorite. My friends who already watched this season burst out laughing when I mentioned the Spider-Verse, and now I can see why. One of my most accurate predictions was made by accident. That's par for the course, really. I ask such questions as, hey, is the next episode going to be a psychological thriller set in a desolate alien abstraction of reality? To which Arcane replies, huh? Sure, I don't know. Hey, check out this collapsible banjo. Let me see if I got this. What we essentially have here is a slice of life, alternate reality, fantasy, sci-fi, survival, horror, romance episode that poses the question, what would the world look like if Vi was dead? Pretty great, actually. We got sunshine, some nice food stalls, competitively motivated research incentives, driving some of the brightest minds in the community to solve the Undercity's biggest problems. And look at Clagger, he's cleaned up nicely. And my Milo still looks like a dweeb. I was very impressed by the setup for this episode, but even more so by the script. It needs to be commended. Hell, it needs to be studied. I already knew that Amanda Overton was one of the coolest writers working on the show.
I did have one of the writers teach me how to shoot a gun, like a sniper gun, right before I was gonna write Caitlin's episode last year.
But now I'm convinced she could do anything. She essentially squeezed the plot structure of a feature film into a 40-minute runtime, complete with 5 montages and 4 vocal songs, yet amidst all of this, still somehow found room for Jace. None of the pacing even felt rushed to me. I honestly have no words. I flipped through the dictionary and all I found was Mully Grubber and MS-DOS. Wait, back up. I thought there were only 2 vocal songs. Oh yeah, then what do you call these? They were just tucked away in the score. Right from the get-go, I was already geeking out over the visuals. Look at these sequences from the main timeline and some shots from episode 7. Notice anything different? I'll give you a few seconds. That's right, the lens distortion. Right as Echo gets catapulted into the new universe, they distinguish his perspective from everyone else's by shooting his scenes with anamorphic lenses, a vintage method of achieving widescreen. Anamorphic lenses squoosh the image down, the projector stretches it back out, they make ovals instead of circles, and then cost $30,000. But hey, in animation it's free. I've been using them for these videos. It lends Echo's shots a dreamlike quality, like he's detached from reality, but as he finds his footing and adapts, his shots start using spherical. I'm such a nerd. Anyway, story stuff. Echo's got Riz, Heimerdinger's got bars, and Jace's got problems. A slight grievance that I had with Act 1 was that Heimerdinger wasn't really given all that much to do. Consider that issue completely and categorically addressed. He is essential to this episode. Having someone around to confirm Echo's reality is a smart way to sidestep the usual, "You're not gonna believe this, but I'm from another universe," followed by, "Sure, that's nice, buddy. I'll check if the psych ward is open on Tuesdays. Thank goodness." Yeah, I know it's a trope for a reason, but I don't like it. He's also come a long way from season 1. In a meager 3 years, he went from the guy whose project timelines rivaled my upload schedule to, "Sorry, could you repeat that? I was busy pressing all of the buttons." He's great, he's cool. He also explodes. Twice. Rest in peace, Heimerdinger. Unless he just popped into another timeline, in which case, good luck. The Z drive is a lot of fun, and a cute little nod to the early days of animation with the zoetrope. Yes, this is technically time travel. However, it's used quite sparingly, and thus far has made no attempt to undo character developments or previously established plot threads. It sort of looks like they're setting up a recall ability for Echo that'll let him get the upper hand in a fight. I think that idea is cool as hell, so I'm gonna let you off with a warning this time, but I'm keeping this on standby. Don't test me. There's a lot of little moments in this episode that felt very human. Echo telling Benzo how much he means to him was a standout to me. That one actually got me tearing up a little. I also thought it was touching how Vander and Silco made up in this world. Another detail I loved was at the very end of the episode. With no witnesses to the explosion, the Hex Tech gemstones become nothing more than a keepsake. Perfect name for the soundtrack, by the way. Really, this episode's divided into 2 parts, the Isekai arc and John Connor's Peak playthrough. Now this was much closer to what I was expecting. Just a nice holiday getaway with scenic vistas and horrors beyond comprehension, and I love it so much. Especially these metallic husks, and the fact that they're not hostile is somehow even more unnerving. Hex Tech has always felt like a thinly veiled metaphor for nuclear arms race, and the toll it's taken on Jace Robert Oppenheimer is on full display here, literally carrying the burden of of what he's created on his shoulders before it breaks his leg and ruins his run. I also thought it was elegant that he couldn't even start his climb back to the surface until he dismantled his hammer. Sort of feels like his story in microcosm. Although I will say, it's still not entirely clear to me what's going on with him. Is there actually a voice guiding him, or is he just crazy? Probably both. I imagine spending a few months in the Chernobyl exclusion zone comes with a few drawbacks. All right, I've managed to dance around it so far, but I gotta talk about Echo and Powder, a name that I was not expecting to use again, and yet here we are. Add one to the jar. No, but you don't understand. These guys, these idiots, morons, freaking adorable. My cuteness aggression could power my house. Ella Purnell lends the character a far softer cadence, but maintains enough of Jinx's playful energy to make it unmistakable that she's cut from the same cloth. She is... Let me find the right word here. Good. That's the one. Thematically, episode 7 feels like an examination of major life transitions, leveraging its alternate reality scenario to contemplate what could have been. It's like the thing from the show. The plot of Echo trying to get back to his original timeline is pretty standard multiverse stuff, but where Arcane sets itself apart is the way it asks, what's the rush? And yeah, it's easy to be preoccupied with the what's, the where's, and the when's of life while completely neglecting the why.
And what's the point of a device like this if you don't enjoy the time you have?
And I'm gonna be honest, it hit close to home for me. I've gone through more significant life changes in the past year than perhaps the rest of my life combined, so this episode felt deeply personal to me in a way that's difficult to describe. It made me notice how much I worry about what's coming next, and how often that next comes at the cost of the now. Even these videos. I get caught up in this cycle of trying to write about the episode I just watched, but all I can think about is when I'll be able to move on to the next one. And just as quickly, what was once a passion project became a chore. I'd get questions rattling around in my mind. Shouldn't I be doing something more productive right now? Am I ever going to move on to the next episode? Would it be better to do things for other people rather than wasting time on these silly videos? Then, as if to answer that third question directly,
as good as it feels to pour everyone's drink, you need to fill your own cup.
it was right about the time Powder made her entrance at the party that it got me. If episode 7 is about living in the moment, this scene is the thesis statement. The composition juxtaposing horror with beauty, a slow build-up of a gorgeous song that's been stuck in my head since the day I heard it. Reality becomes a blur, and everything else falls away in a dance that's as emotionally entrancing as this sentence is pretentious, in a sequence I can only describe as cinema. For a few minutes, nothing else in my life mattered. I was just there for the ride. Every once in a while, an anxiety simmers in the back of my mind about the direction this show's gonna go next. The pessimist in me says I can always drop my first impressions series and binge the rest. The only one pressuring me to make these videos is me, after all, and if nobody else cares, why bother? Well, here's the thing, pessimist soul. You forget about the most important person who does care. You. So work on your videos, not because you have to, but because you want to. And don't feel bad for taking your time to enjoy it, because if nobody else cares, what's the rush?